Hi, Kira. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Just give me one moment and I'll be right with you.
Yeah, of course.
Hi, Diane. Good evening. How are you?
I'm well. And yourself, Andrew?
I'm very well, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, there's Lisa. Okay. Busy day.
Yeah, has been. I've been on Zoom and very long phone calls.
Yes, I know the feeling. We're starting another 200-hour teacher training this week, so I've been making all of the final presentations for that.
Is that in studio then?
Well, we're doing it sort of both, because we've got one person joining us in the studio and one person joining us online. So it's just very small.
My.
Yeah, it'll be fun though. We're looking forward to getting going with another group.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. So, Spanish time. So what I wanted to do today was to reconnect a little bit with some of the vocabulary, some of the ideas that we were looking at last week, some of the techniques for crafting efficient Spanish sentences. So let's go to the worksheets that we were having a look at last week. And I would like to start, we probably won't have time to look at a huge amount, but I would quite like to look at the warm-up worksheet to start with. So if you could all find your warm-up worksheet. So what I thought was interesting when I first watched this video that Andrea made for us was how the way in which she uses language changes throughout the sequence. And so when she's doing her warm-up, she's got this really nice kind of leisurely, slow approach to constructing cues where she's not rushed at all. And I was thinking, for those of you who were composing your Spanish language for the first time last week, you discovered that when you were guiding these sort of almost kind of like vinyasa style flows with lots of movement in a short period of time, it was quite challenging, right? So if you want to make things a little bit more easy for yourselves when it comes to starting off your journey teaching in Spanish, you might consider doing the same thing. So maybe choosing like a seated or even like a lying down sequence so that you don't feel this like kind of crazy rush to bring people from one posture into the next. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
So.
Can I just ask, is anybody else hearing the other voice going on back here in my place?
A little bit, but not bothersome.
All right, let me know, because he's on a call and I can put headphones on.
No, it's fine. Believe me, I've heard worse.
Yeah, you say
Small
so.
children in one of our Zoom meetings, and it was just like, whoa, all over the place.
So the warm-up worksheet starts around 6:49. Okay, so let's have a look at question 1. We'll start with, you're at the top of my screen, Kara, so we'll start with you. What preposition does Andrea use for making shoulder rolls? She says, llevamos los hombros.
Hacia arriba y hacia atrás.
Good, and círculos, haciendo círculos. So what can you tell me about the verb llevar? This is not in the questions, this is just something I'm asking you right now.
You're using it to say take. We're going to take our shoulders up and back.
Right, so llevar is a verb that's used really for any movement that kind of is not towards heart center. So it's very common for a yoga teacher in Spanish to say, lleva los brazos sobre la cabeza, yeah? O lleva los hombros hacia arriba y atrás. So llevar is used much more commonly than something like mover, for example. Okay? So it's a very useful verb. Okay, Diane, how would you translate vamos a cambiar hacia el lado contrario?
And disclaimer, I didn't get all three of these done,
Oh,
but
that's fine. Yeah, no problem.
but translating that, I would just say that you're changing to the other side. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Good. So I really like the adjective contrario, right? In Spanish, you can get people really tied up, especially if you're doing something like a twist. Lleva la mano derecha hacia la rodilla izquierda. Sube la mano izquierda y colócala detrás de la cadera izquierda. Voltea hacia la izquierda. Oh my goodness, it's exhausting, right? So you can vary your language. You can provide a little bit of sort of relief to the ears by using the word contrario. And what other adjective can we use for in Spanish to mean opposite?
Opuesto?
Exactly. So you can say, vamos a cambiar hacia el lado opuesto as well. Or for example, coloca la mano derecha en la rodilla opuesta. Yeah? So it can be nice, instead of saying right or left, to say place the right hand on the opposite knee. Good. Okay. Lisa, at 7:28, what are the three directions that Andrea instructs you to move the shoulders?
Hacia atrás, hacia arriba, and I played the third one about 10 times and I didn't get it.
Anyone?
Adelante.
Yeah, go ahead.
I got adelante.
Adelante.
Okay.
Yeah, the audio is not the best on that recording, but it's adelante.
Okay.
Okay, so at 7:40, Andrea instructs us to come into a twist. Kara, what does she say? Inhalamos?
Elevamos nuestros brazos.
Very good. And exhalamos?
Giramos hacia el lado derecha.
Yeah, giramos, right? So Giramos, giramos. And do you notice how I pronounce the verbs inhalar and exhalar, right? That was something I think that Paulina brought up last time, is that we're so used to saying inhale and exhale in English that we say inhalamos. And that to a Spanish speaker sounds really, really weird, because jalar means to like to pull, right? No me jales el pelo, don't pull my hair, yeah? So, inhalar and exhalar. Good, excellent. Diane, what phrase could you use to lengthen the spine? And if you haven't done this worksheet, that's no problem. What phrase would you use to lengthen the spine?
Extendamos? I mean, I would say.
Yeah, good. So extendemos would be a good option there. Remember that extender is an ER verb. So
Correct.
if you change it to say extendamos, you're making it subjunctive. So we don't want to do that.
Oh.
So yeah, extendemos is one option. Anybody else? What other options could we have for lengthening?
Alargamos.
Alargamos. Yeah, very good. Alargamos la columna. Excellent. Okay, Lisa. Andrea uses this reflexive verb, nos inclinamos hacia adelante. How would you translate that?
Come forward and down.
So where is the word for down?
I guess I was thinking that inclinamos. So you're inclining.
Yeah, to incline one's self, literally. So it just means to lean, okay? So nos inclinamos means let's lean hacia adelante, forwards. Good. Now, who can remind me, what is a reflexive verb?
Doing something to yourself, right? So,
Good, yeah. So in sort of general terms, to do something to yourself. So to be sort of very technical, it's when the subject of the verb and the object of the verb are the same. So, and why is it important for us to know in Spanish about reflexive verbs?
Because we use them a lot.
They do, yeah. So in English, we generally tend to imply the reflexive action of the verb. In Spanish, they don't, and they need to express both the subject and the object. Now, you're going to find exceptions. You definitely will. As any language teacher will know, language rules are there to be broken. And that's just the way that language works. But if you're crafting sort of nice, perfect sounding Spanish, you should be asking yourself, okay, well, the verb that I've chosen here, does it have an object? And if it doesn't, does it make sense if this verb is reflexive? So, for example, if I said, acostamos en la tierra, what have I told people to do?
Lie down on the floor.
Except I haven't. I've told people that I want them to put something on the floor, but I haven't specified what, right? Because I could easily say, acostamos, let me think of a good example. Acostamos nuestro gato en el suelo, like lie your cat down on the floor, yeah? Or, how would I make that reflexive? Nos acostamos en la tierra. Now we're understanding that I'm asking people to lie themselves down. Good. Okay.
Also, isn't it, I mean, in particular with yoga, Spanish doesn't use personal pronouns with body part, you know, so they won't say wash your hands. They'll just say wash their hands.
I'm really glad that you've brought that up because it's an interesting difference from English, right? In English, we get very possessive with our language. Yeah. Raise your hands, stretch your leg, okay? In Spanish, it's not necessary to be so possessive. So it's very, very common to say, subimos las manos, raise the hands, which, you know, kind of sounds odd when we've got Spanish speakers who are speaking English and they say, stretch the leg, raise the hands, you know, twist the body, and we think, it just doesn't sound quite right. So that's a major difference between Spanish and English, is that in Spanish, we don't need to say, subimos nuestras manos. It's just not necessary. Subimos las manos. It's fine.
But again, that's why the reflexive is so handy, because it refers to people. You know, we raise the hands, he raises the, you know, that sort of thing.
Except so when you've got an object like hands, the verb shouldn't be reflexive. So subimos las manos.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So that's a common error that people who are beginning to use reflexive verbs sometimes commit, is that they'll say, nos subimos las manos. And of course, there you've got two objects. You've got, let's raise ourselves the hands, which again is kind of confusing. Okay. So, number 7, manos en copa. It's a lovely phrase. What do you think, Kara, Andrea is doing with her manos en copa?
She was cupping her hands.
Yeah, so you can say cup the hands or tent the fingers, I've heard as well, or come up onto your fingertips. So if ever you need someone to kind of be doing this with their hands on the floor, manos en copa, like literally hands in cup, is a really nice phrase to use.
Yeah, we say tent.
Tent. Yeah, there we go. Okay, Diane. Complete the phrase. Permite que tu cabeza descienda hacia. What would you put in the end of that sentence?
Abajo.
Hacia abajo. Good. Kara and Lisa, did Andrea say something differently from that?
La tierra.
Hacia la tierra. Yeah, both of those work just fine. Good. Lisa, number 9. What does de nuevo mean?
Again.
Good. And there's another adverb, right? Because that's an adverbial phrase, de nuevo. There's another adverb that we can say for again. Does anybody know what it is?
Otra vez.
Otra vez. Good. Or what else?
Repeat.
So what you could say is nuevamente.
Nuevamente.
Or una vez más. Or, yeah, there are millions of ways of saying it. De nuevo. Otra vez. Una vez más. Nuevamente.
Sorry, can you say that one more time, Mother?
Let me put it in the chat so that you can see what the chat says. So we've got nuevamente, otra vez, una vez más. I think those are the 3 alternatives for de nuevo. All right. So, Kara, exhalamos al centro de nuestro corazón. How might you say that in English?
Bring your hands to heart center.
Yeah, exhalamos al centro de nuestro corazón. Exhale to heart center. Good. Okay. How, Dan, would you say in Spanish twice more?
Dos veces?
Dos veces, there's one thing missing.
Where am I here?
Dos veces más.
Dos veces más. Yeah.
Dos veces más. Good. Okay. What's the expression, Lisa, to stretch the neck? Llevamos what hacia where?
Se hombro derecho.
So number 12, llevamos.
So the first one was llevamos, was it la oreja derecha? And then hacia se hombro derecho.
Hacia el hombro derecho. Yeah, so llevamos la oreja derecha hacia el hombro derecho.
Yeah, that was another one I had to listen to like 5 times.
Yeah, it's it can be a little challenging sometimes with the quality of the audio on these computers.
And that one's direct.
What word? Sorry?
The one, so if you're saying el hombro, it's derecho with an O at the end, right?
That's correct, yeah, because derecho is describing, it's an adjective describing el hombro, and so it has to agree in gender and number. So there it's masculine singular, el hombro. Excellent. What word is used for the mat at minute 10? Kara?
El colchoneta.
La colchoneta. Yeah, la colchoneta. Good. Okay. So here's a question that addresses mesa neutral. Dan, what would you understand by mesa neutral if I were to say that to you in a yoga class?
It's like in a neutral spine. So if you're in a tabletop position,
exactly,
you'd be on a neutral spine there.
Good. So what is another popular way to talk about coming onto all fours in Spanish? So you may have heard Paulina talking about this last week.
Something like las puntas cuatro or something like that?
Exactly, yeah. And I'll just write it in the chat. So it's either cuatro apoyos or cuatro puntos de apoyo. So literally 4 supports or 4 points of support. So we would say all fours in English, and they would say cuatro apoyos.
Cuatro apoyos?
Yeah, it sounds very much like cuatro pollos, no? But it's definitely not cuatro pollos, it's cuatro apoyos.
Oh, yeah, 4 chickens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and there's always, I hesitate to use the word puntos. Isn't there a swear word in there someplace?
Not quite. You would need to remove the N for it to become a swear word.
Okay, all right, thank you. Teaching non-English speaking Spanish speakers, kids, you know, you're always very careful about these things.
Oh, I remember. In fact, when I was teaching in international summer schools, and I never let on that I knew that I was a fluent Spanish speaker. And so I would often, the kids would think that they could kind of get away with, you know, all of this swearing behind my back. They definitely could. All right.
Very sly.
Indeed. Well, it's best if you're a language teacher not to give away that you know their language, because then they'll start trying to speak to you in their language, and you have to really kind of force immersion, as it were. So,
Got it.
okay. So, number 15. So, Andrea says, las yemas de los dedos las apoyamos firmemente en la colchoneta. What's she trying to get us to do at that point?
Press your fingertips in the mat.
Great. Yeah. So it means literally the tips of the fingers, we support them firmly on the mat. So what she's really trying to get you to do is just to kind of engage your fingertips, right? To kind of squeeze the mat with the fingertips. Good. Okay, this is something we didn't really cover last week, but is useful to bring up now. We have a verb that's commonly used for rounding the spine in cat. So that's a spinal flexion or a forward fold. And then we have a verb in Spanish that's commonly used for extending the spine in cow. So a spinal extension is back bend. So what verb does Andrea use to round the spine in cat?
Redondeamos.
Good. So let me just pop that in the chat. Redondeamos. Good. And does anybody know the verb that we could use for arching or extending the spine?
Arqueamos.
Excellent. Arqueamos. Good. Excellent. Beautiful. Okay. So here is another of the verbs that we came across last Tuesday, meter. So we discussed a little bit what meter means. Does anybody remember? Meter.
To tuck.
Right, so if you're putting the sheets on your bed, right? Hay que meter las sábanas debajo de la colchoneta. You've got to tuck the sheets underneath the mattress if you've been taught how to make your bed properly anyhow. So, meter, what do we think it means, metemos colita?
Tuck your
Is that a little wiggle, Lisa?
Yeah, I was tucking my cola.
Good, excellent. Tucking the tailbone. I love it. Because if you're kind of doing more of this, that's more what they would say, meneamos la cola. Menear is like wag your tail. And they use that for kind of shaking your booty around. So, good. Okay. We'll do a couple more and then we'll move on. Abre las rodillas a lo ancho de la colchoneta. What do we mean, a lo ancho?
Wide.
Yeah, that. Yeah, it means literally to the width of. Yeah? So, a lo ancho de la colchoneta means to the width of the mat or to mat width. So, a lo ancho is one option. How can I say to the height of?
A la altura.
Yeah, so this is where I'd like to draw your attention to these 2 pages in your handout, right? Other useful asana language. So this is basically a collection of all of the kind of questions of how do I say this or how do I say that have come up over the last few years. So I do recommend reading through this carefully in your own time. But here at the top of the second one, you've got a lo ancho de plus body part to the width of, and then a la altura de or al nivel de to talk about the height. So a la altura de los hombros or al nivel de los hombros, for example. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. Beautiful. Let's do number 21. How would you translate permite que nuestro corazón se derrita hacia la tierra?
Because allow your heart to melt into the ground or the earth. Or...
Exactly. Yeah. So hacia, remember, means towards, but yeah, basically allow your heart to melt towards the ground. So it's good for Anahatasana, heart chakra pose. Yeah, that's sort of the main one where you want to allow your heart to melt. Right? Good. What about the name that Andrea uses for plank at 12:51?
Plancha.
Plancha. Good. So plancha is one option. What would the other option be for plank pose? Begins with a T. And it means literally like a wooden plank or a board.
Tabla.
Yeah, una tabla. Very good. So tabla or plancha. Beautiful. Okay. So did anybody have any questions? Any parts of any of the worksheets that just really kind of stumped them or that they wanted a little bit of help with?
I did. She talked in a couple places about, I think used the verb proyecta.
Oh, proyectar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so pechos, it sounded to me like she was saying pechos, se proyecta hacia el frente. So I just don't remember that we talked about that.
Yeah, so proyectar means to project or to move something in a certain direction, right? So proyecta hacia adelante means project something forward. So if we talk about proyectamos el corazón or proyectamos el pecho hacia adelante, project your chest forward. So it just means to like bring the chest forwards. Yeah? So she might have used that reflexively. She might have said, el pecho se proyecta hacia adelante. That's one way of saying it. Or proyectamos el pecho hacia adelante. There we're using el pecho as an object. So the verb is not reflexive.
Okay.
A question too about levamos una sonrisa al entrecejo.
Yeah. So el entrecejo. What are your cejas? Do you remember?
Your eyebrows.
So what do you think your entrecejo might be?
Right. That space right there, right?
Yeah, kind of your third eye area. So they also say el tercer ojo in Spanish classes, right? But el entrecejo is kind of more specifically that area between your eyebrows.
Okay. And is she literally saying to like bring a smile between your eye to your third eye?
Yeah, kind of, I suppose, to sort of your forehead and to your eyes and whatnot. Because the funny thing is, I don't know if you found this, but if you tell people to smile with their mouth, it doesn't have the same effect than if you tell them to smile with their eyes.
Right.
I don't know if any of you have made that observation before. A smile from the eyes just seems much more genuine than a smile from the mouth.
And so where did she say that? Or what specifically?
Kara?
That was on the body scan worksheet number 13. At 29.
Oh, right. Okay.
20.
Yeah. I couldn't figure that one out.
Okay. Great. So, any final questions before we move on to today's topic?
Oh, and just that she used like soltamos to like come out of the posture. I don't think we had like
Exactly. So it's very common to say, if you want to stay in a posture, you can say sostenemos la postura. And if you want to come out of the posture, so sostenemos la postura is to stay in the posture. To come out of the posture is either salimos de la postura or soltamos. Now, there is a difference. Soltar is usually used for when you're holding some kind of physical tension in your body. So it's common, for example, in a relaxation to say, soltamos toda la tensión del cuerpo, right? So soltamos una postura would be appropriate for a pose where you're using some kind of muscular engagement to hold yourself up. So any standing poses, any arm balances, any kind of kneeling postures or whatever where you need to engage some of your muscles. But it wouldn't be so useful for, let's say, a posture where you're lying on the floor. I mean, people would still understand, but soltar to me suggests this kind of muscular release, yeah? So in the context where you're kind of on the ground or you're lying down or something like that, it might be a little bit better to say salimos de la postura, come out of the pose.
Okay.
Are we going to go on to the other worksheets, or do you want questions on any of the worksheets?
Anything that you would really kind of love to have answered right now.
Well, yeah, if you don't mind, on the body scan worksheet, I have this question next to 11 and 12, but I think it may have been.
Okay.
But there's something about pestañas.
So are we looking at question 11?
I had the question mark between 11 and 12, and maybe it was 12, but I thought she was referring to something like pestañas. It was
Pestañas, maybe?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so does anybody know what your pestañas are?
Your eyelashes.
Yeah, your eyelashes.
Oh.
Not a very common word for yoga, but you know,
No.
why not?
So those were because that was one of the I couldn't understand.
We were relaxing our eyelashes. Yeah.
Why not? Release all of the tension from your eyelashes. Give them a flutter.
Yeah. Okay. Then just when she was going through the toes, it seemed like she started with the gordo, and then unlike the fingers that each had an individual name, she just kept saying like la siguiente.
Yeah, so we don't really have names for the toes in Spanish, because I mean, just like in English, we say the little finger, the ring finger, the middle finger, the index finger, the thumb. They say meñique for your little finger, dedo anular, your ring finger, dedo corazón, your middle finger, because there's meant to be some kind of connection to the heart, dedo índice, and pulgar. For the feet, it's just el dedo gordo, el dedo pequeño, and los otros dedos. Yeah, your other foot fingers. Okay. Right. So let me share with you the presentation for today. So what we want to talk about now is enriching our language. Okay. When we move students through a yoga class and we're creating cues, the first thing is to guide them physically into a posture, right? So in tree pose, bring the weight into the right foot, place the sole of the left foot on the inner thigh, and join the palms at heart center in tree pose, for example. Yeah. At that point, you may want to start enriching your language. And to enrich your language, we can begin to use introspective words. And so here's how to use simple introspective language. So the first thing is that we can cue students quickly into a pose with simple, direct, and efficient language. And then we can begin to provide the opportunity for introspection according to whatever action or pose we are in. So words especially such as observamos, notamos, and sentimos are super, super useful. And you can use these at any point. So to give you some examples in English, I could say, root the right foot into the floor and notice the stability that you've created in your ankle. So there I've blended an instruction with an invitation to observe, to be introspective, to begin to notice what's going on at a physical level, right? I could, for example, say in camel pose, lift and expand the chest and observe the feeling of space that you've created along your whole spine. Does that make sense? So this is how we begin to build in, little by little, introspective language into our classes. So here are some examples. So in Warrior 1, enraizamos los pies en la tierra. How would you translate that, Diane?
Root the feet in the earth.
Excellent. Root the feet into the earth. Good. Y con valentía. There's a nice, very kind of evocative word. Con valentía elevamos el torso y extendemos los brazos sobre la cabeza. Lisa, how might you translate valentía?
Bravery.
Exactly. So with bravery, lift the torso and extend the hands over the head. So you can be, you know, you can be a bit more poetic with your language like that. Now, we're being introspective. Pausamos y sentimos. Pause and feel. Notamos la sensación de fuerza en la postura. Kara, how could I translate that?
Notice the sensation of strength, or notice the strength in the posture.
Yeah, good. Or the feeling of strength.
It's almost like it's almost kind of a forceful strength. Can you kind of? I mean, doesn't fuerza have a little more oomph to it, or not?
Yeah. The feeling of la fuerza. It's just
like the force,
strength, the potency, la potencia. Let's add that, la sensación de fuerza y potencia en la postura. Good. So I've chosen 3 words there, valentía, fuerza, and potencia, that I feel really embody the qualities of Warrior 1, right? So by my slightly more poetic choice of language, I'm trying to suggest the qualities that I want my student. Have any of you seen students who come into Warrior 1 and they've kind of got their hands a little bit like this, sort of kind of floppy hands and slack shoulders, and there's a lot of sinking going on, and I think, goodness me, if you were a warrior, you wouldn't survive very long in a battle. So again, you want to kind of give students these qualities that you'd like them to embody in their postures. And I mean, personally, my own methodology when I'm constructing a sequence, I have a theme, and then I have a couple of qualities or virtues that I normally attach to that theme that I try to then weave into the postures. So whether that's something like surrender or willpower or self-trust, or, you know, choose one of 1,000 other different yoga qualities that you could weave in. Okay, let's have a look at camel. So, rotamos los hombros hacia atrás y conectamos omóplatos. Diane, how would you translate that?
Rotate your arms backward and connect your shoulder blades.
Yeah, so hombros, shoulders, and connect your shoulder blades. Good.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, see. Okay.
Good. And then we can say, sentimos la apertura en el pecho. So I've got my introspective word. Which one is it, Lisa?
Sentimos will feel the apertura,
Yeah.
the opening, right?
Yep, exactly. So feel the opening in the chest. Good. And then finally, observamos el espacio que hemos creado en la postura. Kara.
Observe the space that we have created in the posture.
Good. Okay. So the invitation then is to, we're still keeping it simple, right? There's nothing particularly complicated about any of these cues. But what we're doing is we're adding another layer. And obviously my suggestion is that you're using this introspective language more in the build portion of class and less in the warm-up. Because again, if you're doing these flowing kind of warm-up movements, it's less likely that you have time, unless maybe you're doing like a slow beginner's class or a restorative class to start using this language. Good. Now, I'm going to give you a task as a team. And what I would like you to do is to use this template to guide people into 2 different postures, okay? The first posture is tree pose, la postura del árbol, and the second posture is warrior 2. So as a team, I would like you to, number 1, as it says here, cue students quickly into the posture with simple, direct, and efficient language. Then, I would like you to provide, using observamos, notamos, or sentimos, an opportunity for introspection. Okay? So what are the 2 parts of the task?
With tree and warrior 2 to find the cue to get them into the pose quickly, and then find some introspection.
Good, excellent. So I'm going to give you around about 6 or 7 minutes now as a group to come to an agreement on some of these cues, and then we're going to share our ideas. Any questions? Okay, I will be back in 7 minutes or so.
Do we want to agree on what our cues would be in English first?
Sure. I mean, we can talk about it in English and translate it. I mean, for tree, we can start with tree. We need to shift our weight to 1 foot.
Mm-hmm. Bring weight to 1 foot. Let's say to the left foot, just to
say to the left, and then attach. She did, just to be simple, she did the ankle to the
shin or the calf. Or...
Yeah, what did she do? She kept it on the floor, but she attached the heel with the
heel to the opposite ankle?
Yeah, ankle, that's what she did. You're right.
Not in the video. So
I had to look that up.
Yeah, heel to opposite ankle.
So those can be our cues to get into it, so we can translate.
And then lift arms.
I wouldn't.
I would just keep your hands.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Because that's like advanced. A lot of people then, like they might want to put it on the wall or something.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to.
Can we just say stand on the right foot and then elevate or lift your left foot so we don't have to have too much going on there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, she did it pretty clearly.
Llevamos el peso a la pierna Which way are we going? Izquierda?
Izquierda. And
Do we have to say el peso de, no, just el peso.
Impiesmo?
peso for the weight.
Peso is weight. So take your weight to the left.
Pie
La
izquierdo.
pie izquierda.
And then you want to elevar el talón derecha.
Or
Or no.
I think we want to conectamos, connect it.
All right. Conectamos.
So el talón, is it el or la?
Yeah, it's el.
El talón derecha a la tobilla izquierda. Is that correct?
Okay. And
Derecha.
are we instructing them anything about their hands?
Yeah, we can juntamos las palmas en el corazón.
Juntamos las-
Can you just say, llegamos la corazón?
Or can we say juntamos since we're bringing them together?
Yeah, I would say juntamos either las palmas or las manos.
Yeah, juntamos. Only because I'm using llevamos for like every other verb. Las palmas en las centro de corazón. Or-
Yeah, you can say that.
All right, what's our introspective cues here? Observe how you're almost falling over.
Well, we want to do like this. I would say the enraizamos.
Yeah, and maybe, so root down and feel the strength from the earth or something.
You can try that, but the trouble is most people are wobbling all over the place or reaching for the wall. I mean, I'm sorry, but
Why you tell them to read.
but
So
But-
what are your introspective
the
cues?
thing is to notice your balance and your breath, because ultimately, isn't that what you're kind of
Yeah, but the tree is like to root down. That's why.
right? But my tree waves all over, generally speaking. So I don't know. With my students, I would more want to say, because we tend to coordinate the movement in order to create the balance. So we might exhale and pull our shoulder blades together, inhale, and then we might exhale and keeping the shoulder blades together, reach slowly for the Scott. So we're kind of noticing how breath and balance works together.
Maybe, except for we're not moving. We're just noticing.
Just noticing as we stand there.
Correct. I guess my
I like that.
yeah, my
Notice-
overall point is that if you bring the attention to the connection between breath and balance as they wiggle and weave, or have the hand on the wall, try lifting it a little bit away. You know, where is your breath stabilizing in coordination with balance? That would be my
Yeah,
thing.
no, I like that. I like that. Notice the, yeah.
Yep, it's super simple.
Yeah.
Huh?
I usually just say,
You're a dancer. You got this down. The rest of us, we're all over the
Yeah.
map, man.
I would say in order to find your balance, you have to root down and lift up. So like I would feel myself rooting down through the earth and growing up through the crown of my head.
Yeah, and
I-
it's partly because I work with incarcerated men with a lot of injuries and issues, but rooting down when they're standing on one foot generally doesn't work.
oh, see, I love that cue. They're
Okay,
really,
we can certainly use it, not a problem.
yeah, just because I just find that to make such a difference is
Okay.
rooting it down to get taller. And
As a horticulturalist, if I knocked off one of their roots, I wouldn't expect them to stand up very long, but
and then
it's a
one
pruning
of the
issue.
things that I usually cue is to be curious about your balance today, you know, and notice, is it different than it was yesterday? And can you not judge it? And
Okay, for that we can notamos
yeah,
la
Valencia.
so equilibrio or
notamos. Sí. Notamos.
I mean, I would just say notice your balance or notice the balance, you know? Because the point is it's going to be individual, isn't it? So just let them notice it. Don't, again, partly it's my own background, trauma informed. We're very careful with language, not to speak to what we anticipate them to feel, because if you have a lot of trauma, you may not feel anything, right?
But if we're just teaching a non-trauma based
Well,
class,
it's a useful
I
lens.
think we can have more.
Okay, all right.
Let's notice the balance. We can notamos el equilibrio en el cuerpo.
Yeah, but I did really like, Dan, what you were saying about kind of the interplay between balance and breath.
It is, it can be helpful sometimes, yeah.
All right, should we move on to Warrior 2, and then if we have time, we can go
Okay.
back and refine these cues.
Sure.
So for the cues for Warrior 2, do we want to step out wide on the mat? How do you keep getting?
If I was standing, I would step. I think it's easiest to step back.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would step back and then,
Point toes to the front of your mat.
Back. So
How do you, I'm trying to think of a simple way to get your toes lined up the way you would for Warrior 2.
Well-
turn my back toes towards the side of the long side of my mat. Or
I mean, there also is some recent research where they're kind of changing some of the old Iyengar kind of stuff that started this. So, because the point is kind of bringing the hips forward. We use the headlamps, headlights sort of image. So your foot, depending on your hip structure and your lower back, could be directly behind, or it might be slightly off. So I tend to just say step your foot back.
Okay, let's do levantamos el pie. Let's just take the,
Levamos.
yeah.
Levantamos la pierna izquierda.
El pie izquierda hacia
Atrás, see?
atrás.
And you could say el cuerpo or something if you want, but
Way to say a big step, wasn't there? I'll look at it later. I don't know where that was. Okay, izquierda.
Los brazos.
Yeah.
How do we do wide to? Well, I guess that's just like.
I would take.
Ancho is wide, but spread.
But one of them's kind of going back and one's kind of going forward, so, right?
Yes, I would take. Do we want to say though? Oops. Abremos. Hacia la would open your arms for like.
Again, I would just say put your, if you're doing right foot back, right arm back, and then hips forward. I mean, it's a good start, isn't it? I mean.
But in Spanish.
Yeah. But
So
three
what's
cues.
what's the verb you want to use there?
Not
Take
open.
on the-
Want to open your arms?
Yeah, abrimos.
certainly you can.
Yeah.
I think when I open, I tend to wind up going horizontal rather than following the line of my leg. But
I would open and
then, yeah.
face your hips and square your hips towards the side of the mat.
Okay.
I don't know how to say it in Spanish, but do you know what I mean? I would open your arms so that you're facing sideways. So then your arms, because you're not this way, you're this way. You know what I mean? I'm just
trying to simplify it in my own head, because when I do Spanish, it's going to be very straightforward.
Abrimos
Los brazos.
los brazos.
Miramos.
Entre. Yeah, you can say entre los dedos del mano derecha.
Yeah, so you're,
The left foot back, you're going to look through the right fingertips.
right. Miramos suavemente.
But can't you just say, so if you're doing your right foot back, correct?
We're doing our left foot back.
Oh,
Yeah,
left foot back. Okay. So if you're doing your left foot back and your right arm forward, correct?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to
Right.
look to our right.
So I would just say hacia adelante para la mano derecha, see, or something like that. But I would use the movement forward and the movement back after you open them. So like I'm opening them, where do I put them? I go one forward and one back, right? Doing a pigeon on the floor here in order to pull this off.
Okay, let's see. Los hombres, or excuse me, los brazos.
This is going to be great to test this out, man. I've got a Bolivian woman friend. I'll probably have her stuck in about word 4.
How are we all doing?
Well, we're,
All right. So let's start with tree pose. Lisa, what was your first cue to bring people into tree?
Llevamos el peso al pie izquierda.
Pie izquierda o pie izquierdo?
Izquierdo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Izquierdo.
Good. So llevamos el peso hacia el pie izquierdo. Good. What comes next? Diane.
Not quite sure. I have trouble taking notes with these discussions.
Kara, what comes next?
Conectamos el talón derecho a la tobilla izquierda.
So, a couple of small refinements there. So, conectamos, it's okay, people will understand that. I think a better verb is maybe apoyamos, yeah? Apoyar is whenever you're supporting one thing against another. So, apoyamos. Now, el talón, was it el talón that you said?
Yeah, I was just going because that's what she did in the video. She just connected she connected the triples on the ground. So
yeah, so conectamos el talón derecho
a la tobilla izquierda.
Now, if we're using apoyar, we're going to use the preposition en. So apoyamos el talón en el tobillo.
Okay.
So it's not la tobilla, it's el tobillo. Yeah?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay.
Could we use contrario there?
Sorry, Lisa, I didn't catch that.
Could we say contrario there?
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. Or opuesto as well. Mhm. Very good. Okay. Excellent. What do we go next? What's the next cue?
Juntamos las palmas en el centro del corazón.
Good. Juntamos. So if you're from Peninsular Spain, especially from Madrid, you'll juntamos. But if you're from Latin America, you can just make an H noise, just juntamos.
Juntamos.
Yeah, so juntamos las palmas en el corazón. Good, so we've got our efficient cues to bring our students into the posture. Now we need introspective language. So how did you deal with introspective language in this posture?
With a lot of contention.
Okay. So
A lot of discussion.
what phrases did you come up with?
Well, I would say something to the effect of observamos la respiración y Valencia, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Good. So in English, what would you say exactly? I'll help you translate.
So I would say observe your breath and balance.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
Or I could say the connection, or notice the connection between breath and balance, or
Perfect.
something like that.
So in that case, we can say observamos la conexión. Let me type this into the group chat. Observamos la conexión entre la respiración y equilibrio en esta postura.
And so what's the difference when do I use balance, balance, and when do I use what I would loosely translate as equilibrium? There is a relationship, right, between the two.
Yeah.
Or
So
a connection, I guess.
it's one of those things where the difference is kind of subtle. El balance is often used when we're talking about a financial balance. It's not often used for kind of finding your balance on your feet.
Okay.
That is el equilibrio. And when it comes to the verbs, balancear is often used for rocking motions. So nos balanceamos de un lado al otro is rock from one side to the other. So if you're on your back and you've kind of hugging the knees to the chest, you want to massage the spine, nos balanceamos. Whereas if you want to tell people, okay, let's find our balance, so buscamos nuestro equilibrio, or nos equilibramos sobre un pie, like balance on one foot. Nos equilibramos sobre el pie derecho.
Thank you.
Good. So there's a million things that you could say here. You could be metaphorical if you wanted, right? You could say something like extendemos nuestros raíces en la tierra y sentimos la estabilidad en la postura, como un gran árbol buscando luz en el bosque. I don't know. You can choose your words. So extend your roots through the feet into the floor and feel the stability that you've created, like a large tree in the forest looking for the sun. So I think Spanish is a language that really gives itself over to being quite poetic, if you want to, if you feel comfortable with that kind of thing. Another one would be extiende tus brazos sobre la cabeza y siente la extensión a través de tus dedos, como la copa de un árbol buscando la luz. So feel the extension of the energy through your fingertips, just like the branches of a tree looking for the light, for example. So don't be limited by your imagination. In my advanced teacher training, we did an entire weekend on looking for metaphor in yoga practice in Spanish. So I'm well used to doing all of this kind of stuff. And we had some very, very strange metaphor being someone talked about hug your muscles to the bone as if you were wearing a pair of latex socks. And I thought, who on earth wears latex socks? It's not a very good metaphor. Anyway, so I've been there and done that. All right. Good, excellent. So let's deal with Warrior 2. Who would like to start with Warrior 2?
Sure. This one seemed a little more complicated, but levantamos el pie izquierdo hacia atrás y abrimos los brazos.
So we're in Warrior 2. So what first of all, explain to me, which posture are you coming into Warrior 2 from? Is it
from mountain? Just standing on 2 feet and
great.
we're stepping.
To make it super, super simple, because sometimes we do in down dog, right? We lift one foot and then we bring it between the hands. Let's just make it simple and say, is it the left foot you're stepping forwards?
Stepping back, left foot back, right foot forward.
Left, but if you're going up, you can bring the right forward. Whatever.
You just say, traemos el pie derecho entre las manos, ¿ya? Y alineamos el arco del pie con el talón del otro, ¿ya? So that's giving you the base. So let me just put that into the chat.
Yes.
So, traemos el pie derecho entre las manos. Easy, no?
That's
Then,
coming down dog then.
Tenemos el pie derecho.
yeah. And then alineamos, so to align, el talón del pie trasero. Why not? Trasero means back, the back foot. El pie trasero, the back foot. Con el talón del pie delantero. And there you've got your base. Traemos el pie derecho entre las manos. Alineamos el talón del pie. Sorry. Ignore that sentence that I've just written. I made a mistake. So we should say alineamos el arco. Right? So align the arch of the back foot with the heel of the front foot.
El arco del pie.
And then I would simply say something like, subimos el torso y abrimos los brazos en Guerrero 2. So it doesn't need to be particularly complicated, especially if you're physically demonstrating the posture to your students. You can always bring a student into a posture within 3 simple cues, I found. And so here we've got bring the right foot between the hands, Q1. Q2, align the arch of the back foot with the heel of the front foot. Q3, raise the torso and open the arms in Warrior 2.
Okay.
Any questions there?
So I'm just still, so if, are we starting into Tadasana?
No, this would be starting
Okay. Starting.
Down dog.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, then it makes sense.
Tadasana, what I would probably have to say is bajamos las manos al suelo y llevamos el pie izquierdo hacia atrás. And that would replace that cue. So lower the hands to the floor and bring the left foot back. And then you can talk about aligning the heel and the arch, lifting the torso and opening the arms in Warrior 2. So what we're really doing here is we're identifying 3 key movements that bring the student into the pose. And I think if you're able to do that, just identify what are those 3 key things. Maybe you need more, but let's be honest, you're going to have to limit yourself to 3 because of time standards, because you don't want to be overheating your already overheated brain. And just simplify things. People will watch you if they're in doubt. I mean, I remember when I first started teaching this language course, we had a girl from Finland who joined us here in the studio. And on day 2 of the course, She just decided in her hostel to lead, you know, a bunch of Spanish speakers through a yoga class. And she literally did it by saying, mano, suelo, mano, aire, you know, like that. And people just watched and they thought it was hilarious and they had a good time. You know, you don't need perfect language, and you don't need to account for every single tiny detail in a posture to make a start. With time, you can work towards those things. All right. So having said that, then, what kind of things can we bring students to notice or observe in Warrior 2?
I would sentimos la fuerza.
Good. Sentimos la fuerza en la postura. Sentimos la fuerza en nuestro corazón. Feel the strength in your heart. Yeah, it's a posture that's kind of a heart opener, right? Sentimos el coraje, courage. Yeah. Sentimos la osadía, the bravery. Yeah. There's so many things that you could use metaphorically. Or if you're not comfortable with being metaphorical, sentimos la apertura en el pecho. Yeah? Feel the opening in the chest. Sentimos la estabilidad en la base. Feel the stability in your base. Yeah? O mira sobre tu mano y siente la confianza en esta postura. Look over your middle finger and feel the confidence in this pose. So really, one thing that it might help to do is when you're crafting your class, to think about, well, today I'm doing a practice that's to do with tapas, to do with, you know, the willpower, the fire of change. And so I'm going to choose the qualities of courage, and strength of willpower to talk about, to weave into my practice. And I'm going to think about the synonyms, valentía, coraje, osadía. And I'm just going to jot those down, and I can use those at whichever moment during the class when it might make sense. Does that make sense? Great. Okay. Any further questions on beginning to craft introspective language? Okay. So now that we've dealt with that part of the presentation, I'll draw your attention to the meditation section of the handout. So there's a lot of language in here that might be useful to you. I recommend that for homework that you just have a quick look through. Familiarize yourself with things like juicios, judgments, prejuicios, prejudices, introspección, introspection, suavidad, ligereza, softness or lightness, firmeza, firmness or strength. When it comes to actually crafting a meditation, again, you can do this very, very simply. Now, for those of you who watched the whole of Andrea's class, she guided a meditation. Did you notice that in the beginning of class? And the language that she used is right here. And actually, these are some really nice qualities that you might want to bring into your yoga class as well. She used the verbs inhalar and exhalar to guide the sense of having qualities enter and exit the body. So she was saying things like, inhalamos tranquilidad, exhalamos luz. So inhale peacefulness, exhale light. Inhalamos felicidad, exhalamos gozo. So inhale happiness, exhale joy or pleasure. Inhalamos paz, exhalamos gratitud. Inhalamos calma, exhalamos amor. And so you've got all of these qualities: confidence, strength, bravery, energy, appreciation, compassion, generosity, hope, abundance, beauty.
Okay.
Hello there.
At least it's not me today. Andrew,
You're doing
cutting
very
out-
well.
you've been cutting out and freezing a lot. in the
I'm
last-
sorry about that. Just give me one moment. Amor, ¿estás utilizando el internet ahí? Okay.
For once, it's not me.
Yeah, it's that my partner is taking a yoga class downstairs, and I think that the internet's just not able to cope with two machines at the same time. So let me rephrase. Let me go back over that again. So if you really just want to keep things very, very simple for yourselves, get people sat down, yeah, nos sentamos en una postura cómoda, and then get them to breathe. Nos enfocamos en la respiración, yeah? And from there, you can just use these very simple phrases to inhale and to exhale, to inhale and to exhale. Now, if you want to start doing a meditation that is a little bit more complete, then you might like to use the guide that I've created for you here. So the first part is to do with creating a comfortable posture, right? Getting your students comfy. So let's move through this and translate. Diane, would you help me with translating this first sentence?
So we sit in a comfortable posture.
Good. Nos sentamos en una postura cómoda. Very good. Lisa, sacamos los glúteos, alargamos los costados del cuerpo, rotamos los hombros hacia las orejas, hacia atrás y abajo.
All right. I don't know what sacamos los. So I'm guessing it'd be some sort of relaxation, but I don't know.
Well, sacar means to, I mean, literally it means to kind of remove, but you're definitely not removing your buttocks when you sit down. Here it means more just to kind of roll them out from underneath you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So like you pull the flesh oftentimes when you're sitting, right? They kind of, so your sit bones are square on the.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we could always talk about y apoyamos los isquiones en la tierra, you know. So support the sit bones on the earth, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that, and then it's lengthen your ribs, your rib cage.
Not the ribs so much as the costados, not the costilla,
Costados.
the costados.
I don't. Like the rib cage.
The costado is the side body.
Oh, side body.
Yeah. So your costados, your side body. So lengthen your side body. Mm-hmm. And then
Right.
rotamos los hombros hacia las orejas, hacia atrás y abajo.
Yeah. Rotate your shoulders up to your ears, back and down.
Mm-hmm. Y cerramos los ojos.
And close your eyes.
Great.
Lower your mirada.
Oh, your gaze or your.
Uh-huh. Very good. Kara, tomamos unas respiraciones lentas y profundas.
Take some slow and deep breaths.
Very good. So unas in that context means some. Good. So we've gotten students sat comfortably. We've got them to close their eyes. They're taking some deep and slow breaths. And at this point, I personally like to get my students to connect with the environment because it helps them come out of their mind, come out of their thought cycles, and just take a moment to connect with what's going on around them. So again, I like to say pausamos. Observamos nuestro entorno. What's an entorno?
The internal kind of, our internal space kind of.
Not
Entorno?
quite. Your entorno is your surroundings, your environment.
Ah, okay. So N is an outside. Okay.
Yeah. So notamos. So notice los olores. What are olores?
your smell.
Los sonidos. Sounds.
Sound.
La temperatura del aire y la brisa.
The temperature of the air.
What does brisa sound like?
The breeze or
Breeze, yeah. So especially if you're sat like outside, it can be really nice to get people to notice the touch of the breeze on the skin. La calidad de la luz.
Quality of light.
Yeah, so even if it's like through closed eyes, people can notice if it's like a harsh light or a gentle light or if it's quite dark. La tierra debajo del cuerpo.
Ground, the earth underneath your body.
Great. So when I come through these things, I like to do it slowly. So, you know, notamos los olores, and then you give people a moment to notice, okay, can I smell anything? Oh yeah, it smells like the sea. It smells really nice. Notamos los sonidos. Oh, I can hear the crashing of the waves against the shore. That's lovely. Notamos la temperatura del aire y la brisa. Oh, it's hot, but there's a nice breeze on my skin. La calidad de la luz. Está muy brillante. It's very bright. La tierra debajo del cuerpo. They feel the earth beneath their body. And then you can begin to get them to bring their attention within. So if you want a phrase, Diane, that's for kind of connecting with the inside, then llevamos nuestra atención adentro is a nice phrase to do that. So then again, what things can we begin to notice that are going on within? So I've said notamos las sensaciones en nuestro cuerpo. What does that mean?
the sensations of your body or, yeah.
And so you can add your own things to here. I just put, let's get rid of dolores. Let's just talk about las partes cómodas e incómodas.
See.
What does that mean?
So the comfortable and uncomfortable parts.
Yeah, and if you wanted to do a little bit of a body scan here, you could say something like, empezamos en los pies. Notamos las sensaciones en tus pies. Subimos a las rodillas. Nota tus rodillas. You know? Sube a tus caderas. ¿Qué sientes en tus caderas? For example. Okay. What about el ritmo y los latidos del corazón?
Rhythm of your heartbeat?
Yeah, literally the rhythm and the beating of the heart. Yeah, good. La respiración y la expansión de los pulmones y del abdomen.
The breath and the expansion of the lungs and the stomach.
Yeah, good. Las emociones presentes en nuestro corazón.
The emotions in our heart.
Yeah, the emotions, whatever emotions are present in your heart. La calidad de nuestra mente, si está agitada o calmada, ocupada o tranquila.
It's just the quality of your mind or your thoughts. If you're agitated or calm, busy or calm, or worried or calm.
Very good.
I have a question. So, and it's a, it's the language question. So it talks about the emotions in your heart. To me, that's kind of Spanish, because as an English speaker, I'd be more inclined, depending where you're teaching, et cetera, your community, whatever, but I would be more personally comfortable opening it up to saying, what's present in your body, right? So that a student could kind of roam around, because sometimes heart can be confusing.
It can be. I think that's the influence of my Anusara training, where they talk a lot about, the heart as a sort of an energetic center of the body. By all means, if it makes more sense to talk about las emociones presentes en nuestro cuerpo, from like a more mindfulness perspective, it makes more sense to talk about it that way, for sure. Okay. Great. And then I just finished with something very simple. Seguimos el ritmo de nuestra respiración. How can we translate that?
Follow the rhythm of our breath.
Good.
Continue. Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, so seguir is it can mean either to follow or to continue. Here it means to follow. So sigue or seguimos el ritmo de nuestra respiración. Now, here's a nice little phrase for when the attention wanders off. Because, of course, if you've practiced meditation, you notice that the mind will immediately wander off into a million different directions. And so it's nice to say something along the lines of, si la mente se ha desviado, volvemos a observar y a sentir. So, how can we translate that? Si la mente se ha desviado.
So if your mind diverges or wanders or goes off, return and observe how you feel.
Yeah.
Return. We return to observe
feeling.
and to feel or to feel something like that.
And then just seguimos practicando en silencio. Let's continue. There, seguir does mean continue because it's attached to a participle, practicando. And so in that case, it means continue practicing in silence. So really, I just designed this to be a flexible template that can be modified according to your own preferences. The nature of this design is that the first part, you get people to sit down, to get comfy. The second part, you get them to notice their environment. The third part, you get to notice what's going on within, whatever that might be. And then in the fourth part, you get them to continue their practice. And so within those 4 sections, you've got a lot of flexibility. Maybe you don't want to talk about smells and sounds. Maybe you want to talk about something else in the environment. Maybe when it comes to bringing the attention within, there's a specific thing that you want to focus on in your class today. It might be that you're doing a class on confronting personal fears. So you might want to adapt that part of the meditation and nota si sientes algún tipo de miedo en tu corazón hoy. ¿Ya? Nótalo y siéntelo plenamente. Note it and feel it fully, etc., etc. Would you feel confident using this template and adapting it to your own ends?
Very much so.
Yeah.
No, it's good because even in English, I've had people do different meditations or mindfulness practices or something, and the temptation can be for a facilitator to speak too much. And I want to just say, shut up. I'm trying to get into this here. And then they keep throwing it in another direction. I just feel like, right? So this is very nice to have it just kind of pick 1, 2, whatever, and just kind of keep it in a packet. So thank you.
And I think a lot of that is to do with, number one, the kind of the confidence and experience of the facilitator, because I think that if they are a confident and experienced teacher, they'll be less inclined to fill kind of every moment with noise. The second thing is the level of experience of the meditator and the environment that they find themselves in. Because I do notice that in my classes, because we're in a busy city, people can come in very distracted. And so they need like constant kind of guidance, or they just end up kind of, and it's even worse online. People literally start opening their eyes and checking their phones and whatnot. So you can understand kind of why some teachers want to kind of over control. But for sure, if silence is something that works for you and that works for your students, then this meditation lends itself to that.
So the only other thing I would just raise a question is, for some people, the silence is like difficult, and a little bit of movement direction can be helpful. So just rubbing your hands lightly, or turning your palms over, or allowance to rock a little, or something like that, can be more centering than paying attention to sensations or breath. So I don't know.
Yeah, so if you wanted to say something like, I mean, you could always do some kind of movement meditation, right? You know, for people who really find it hard to sit down. I mean, seated meditation is not for everyone, and it's not necessarily always for like a first-time meditator very beneficial. So doing like, we had a really nice, when I worked out in Bali, they had one of these stone mazes where you just walk very slowly and you feel the grass underneath your feet and you just follow the pattern of the maze. So that kind of meditation can be really helpful as well. But if you wanted to say something like that, you could, taking your example of rubbing the hands, frotamos las manos, yeah? So rub the hands together. Y generamos, or let's be introspective, y notamos el calor que estamos generando. Yeah, so notice the heat that we're generating. What other kinds of things might you direct your students to do if you wanted like little physical movements?
Go ahead.
I might have them tighten some muscles to then release them and notice the sensation.
So if you're using your hands, you can say hacemos puños con las manos y activamos todos los músculos. ¿Ya? Y los soltamos. So, do you notice that I've used the word los there? That word is the word for them. So if in Spanish we wanted to say it or them, we can use the following words. Lo, masculine singular. La, feminine singular. Los, masculine plural. Las, feminine plural. Okay? So here, because we're talking about los músculos, that's a masculine plural word, and so I've chosen the masculine plural pronoun, which is los soltamos. So hacemos puños con las manos, activamos todos los músculos y los soltamos. Good. What other phrases might you use for little movements that might help?
Sometimes I have people just do little like half circles with their head and neck.
Good.
Wow. To like take some of the tension out.
So hacemos círculos con la cabeza y relajamos los músculos del cuello, for example. Good. Any other questions about little movements that we can do? Anything else?
You also just...
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry about this. So, Kara, you were saying something to me?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to see, is there a way, sometimes I say like, also like open your mouth, like to get the tension out of your jaw, but do you say like open your mouth in Spanish?
So yeah, you could say something along the lines of...
Or like, I don't know, like what phrase you would use to kind of do that.
abrimos bien la boca y estiramos los músculos de la mandíbula. Does that make sense?
Why is the bien in there?
Yeah, good question. So bien means like, literally it means well. So it's a way of like emphasizing. So if you say to somebody, abre bien tu boca, it means like open really wide. Does that make sense?
I think it's just like well, you know, like complete, right? Like
We'll see. Maybe he'll tell us again.
Yeah.
It sounds like Karen was saying the right thing there. That yeah. So bien means literally well.
Oh no.
But in this context, it's used to suggest, like, to emphasize the action. So abre bien tu boca is like open really wide your mouth. Yeah. So estira bien los brazos, like really stretch your arms. Or abre bien tu corazón, like really open your heart. So the word bien is used to emphasize, to provide emphasis.
Okay, I didn't know that. And it always comes right after the verb?
Exactly. Good.
And is that the hint that if you see it after the verb, that it's probably more like really as opposed to good?
Exactly. I mean, it depends on the context. For example, if you said to someone, lo haces muy bien, like you're doing it really well, like you're doing it fine. Whereas in this context, like, I mean, like stretch well your jaw. It kind of means the same thing. It doesn't sound very natural in English to say that, but we kind of understand what we're saying, right?
Okay.
Good.
All right.
All right. So the final thing that I wanted to direct your attention to this evening are some of these phrases that we've got here. Okay, so let me zoom in on them. Can you see those on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
So these phrases are all ways of getting people to bring their attention to different things. And I think when it comes to introspection and meditation, these phrases are absolutely key. So some of them are reflexive, some of them are not. So the first one is conectarse con. Is that reflexive?
Not really. It's just positioning.
So if it has se on the end, it will be reflexive because that se is the reflexive infinitive. So,
I thought you meant reflective. Sorry.
Reflexive of X. So conectarse con means literally to connect one's self with. So how can we put that into the we form?
Nos conectamos.
Yeah.
Conectamos.
So we can say, for example, nos conectamos con la respiración. Let's connect with our breath. Nos conectamos con las sensaciones en las caderas, the feelings in your hips or the sensation in your hips. Next one is concentrarse en, like literally to concentrate yourself on or to focus on. So you can put that into the we form.
Nos concentramos.
Nos.
Good. So nos concentramos en nuestras emociones. Like focus on your emotions, your feelings. Centrar la atención en. Is that reflexive?
No.
No. Why?
Because there's no se on the end of the verb.
And also we have an object, right? So the object in this case, what is it?
La atención.
Yeah, so let's center our attention on. So centramos la atención en los sonidos, en la música, for example. Enfocarse en, to focus on. Is that reflexive?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so nos enfocamos en nuestra base, ¿ya? En el contacto entre la pelvis y el suelo. Like focus on your base, on the connection between the pelvis and the floor. And finally, llevar la atención a. And that one's good as well for like body scans. So to bring the attention to. Lleva tu atención, o llevamos la atención a los pies. Y sentimos. Yeah, and just feel whatever's going on there. So I think when it comes to guiding any kind of introspection, those are just 5 really useful phrases. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about anything to do with meditation or introspection? Keeping in mind that obviously simpler is better when it comes to starting these things. So one other thing that I would say is there are absolutely tons of meditations out there, right? People who've written guided meditations or who've recorded guided meditations and have put them online. So I can highly recommend just having a little search online and finding some meditations that work really well for you, right? Because there are all kinds of different levels of complexity of meditation. You can find things that are more simple. You can find things that are super complex. Let me see if I can find some other meditations. Let me just see if I've got anything saved in my folders here.
If you are placing your palms face up or face down, like your legs, are you using apoyamos there, or are you using a different verb there?
So, yeah, I mean, you can use many different verbs, right? You could say, traemos las palmas a las rodillas. Or descansamos. That's a really nice word. Descansamos las palmas en las rodillas. And then you could say things like, las palmas mirando, or las palmas abiertas, right? For your palms kind of open.
Yeah, okay.
O las palmas mirando hacia arriba, las palmas mirando el cielo. Or las palmas descansando sobre las rodillas. Like if the palms are kind of resting on top of the knees. Good. And so here is another meditation that, we designed. So again, you can get a little bit more complicated if you want and say things like, tomamos este tiempo para nosotros mismos, este descanso interior de paz y sosiego. So let's take this time for ourselves, this inner rest of peace and calm. Acomodamos el cuerpo en la colchoneta, estiramos las piernas hacia cada lado, rotamos los hombros, etc., etc., etc. Sin intervenir, sin juzgar, solamente descansamos y soltamos toda la tensión del cuerpo. So without intervening, without judgment, let's rest and release all of the tension from the body. Yeah? And so, yeah, you can find tons of stuff out there. Observamos las sensaciones del cuerpo, el movimiento del abdomen al respirar, el contacto del cuerpo con la colchoneta. Y reposamos completamente el cuerpo aquí, soltando cualquier carga. Yeah? So that's more kind of like a relaxation meditation. Yes, Lisa?
Are these slides available on the website or?
They're not, but I'm happy to share this presentation. This was like, so sometimes I do like more advanced language courses, people who've completed the first course and want to continue studying. So this presentation was designed to kind of build on what we'd done before. Some of it's repeated, but this meditation that we composed was is obviously a little bit more complex. But I'm super happy to share this with you this evening as well.
Great.
Thank you.
But yeah, I would love some recommendations on a nice, relaxing meditation to listen to.
Yeah, YouTube is a great resource. I mean, there's so many, as is Instagram. If you just start to look for like different yoga studios, you'll find some of them upload free content like that. So for sure, it can be a good option.
Okay. Well,
So
if anybody finds them.
Go ahead.
Okay.
And so, interestingly enough, just the other day, I was, just watching some YouTube videos of an evening, and I happened to find a project that I made about 4 years ago called Respira Relax, which was like a body scan meditation that I did there. And I just uploaded it without kind of thinking twice about it. And I came back and it had 2,500 views. So yeah, it was a nice little surprise. Now I'll be happy to share that one with you as well.
Yeah.
So you're like a relaxation meditation.
I'd love that.
Sure. Great. So we're going to be working once again with Paulina tomorrow. So it would be really great to prepare another sequence of postures. So if you tried like a series of standing postures last time, maybe try some seated postures this time. Yeah, mix things up a little bit. And as and when appropriate, I would like you to add in some introspective language. So it's kind of up to you how many postures you prepare. I mean, I know that everyone's busy, so you may or may not have time to do a huge amount before tomorrow evening, but do what you can. And more importantly, come with questions, because that's what Paulina is there for. She's a native speaker. Anything that's been kind of, just making you curious or troubling you over the last few weeks, by all means, bring it tomorrow. And she's going to do a format very much like we did last time. So an hour or so of working through your sequences, and then maybe we can extend the teaching time so that we're not so rushed this time round. Okay. Any questions? Well, good work, everyone. It's been lovely to work with you all again this evening. Thank you all so much for your attention. I will share all of those things plus the video of today's practice a little bit later on this evening when it's finished uploading.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
My
That's
pleasure.
great.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.